YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back today. I'm giving you my top 10 NFL free agents for the 2022 offseason. We're also going to look at the potential landing spots in free agency for those free agents. So excited about this. Obviously, they have to be a fit, and they have to be able to make it work cap space wise there for them to be a potential landing spot, in my opinion. We have all kinds of predictions, grades for free agency throughout free agency in the offseason, of course. We got you covered here, so like, subscribe, turn notifications on. We have full NFL coverage here. Follow our Twitter. There's a link down below, pinned in the comments for the Twitter. A lot of updates, a lot of coaching news going on right now, so follow us there. Live updates during games. We still got 3 ball games left, so hopefully you join us for all that. Number 10, free agent for the 2022 offseason, Chandler Jones coming in at number 10. Now, that's the guy. It's a vet. I'm going to rank higher the guys that are multi-year, long, can help now plus future. So I'm going to prefer those guys in terms of ranking free agents. It's not necessarily ranking the top 10 best players that would step on the field today. There's more to it than that. But Chandler Jones does make the top 10, a veteran pass rusher that could help some teams out, help some teams contend for the playoffs or for the Super Bowl. What I like about Chandler Jones is that he can fit either scheme. He's experienced playing 3-4 outside linebacker, which he just did with the Cardinals, or 4-3 defensive end. So you see some fits here, some contending teams for the most part here. Some of them have a decent amount of cap space. The Cardinals are actually a little low on the cap space, and we'll go more, about what teams can do and, their available cap space, how they can clear space in the future here. But there's some ways they can clear some space, and we'll see if they get Chandler Jones back because they were hesitant to extend him. He kind of wanted to trade at one point because they weren't going to extend him. So it'd be pretty interesting to see what happens here. I definitely, if you look at it that way, that he asked for a trade and they weren't extending him, it kind of feels like he's out. But I would say not so fast. I'd say they could work out something there. Chargers could be looking for some edge rushers that fit their 3-4 defense. I mean, Bosa plays off the edge, but Joey Bosa, they are also putting him as almost a defensive end, like a 3-4 defensive end there, which looked pretty good. So be pretty important for them to get more pass rush. They do have other priorities, though. The Chiefs could look to add more pass rush. Could they move on from Frank Clark? The Broncos could add somebody with Bradley Chubb. The Colts, the Colts, this could be the year. The way Jim Irsay's talking, we can't, it's the way he's talking is like we got to go out and get better, because every offseason they got loads of cap space and they make one trade move, Wentz, Buckner in the past. They don't do anything. They're ignoring the pass rush, edge rush position. So every year they let me down. I predict them to get people, but this could be the year. This could be the year they go and get somebody like a Chandler Jones, perhaps. Dolphins have a load of money, could use another pass rusher. Emmanuel Ogbah is a free agent. The Seahawks actually have a lot of cap space, and they could use a pass rusher for sure. I think, looking at Darrell Taylor on one side for the future, let's find that other guy to pair with him. So these teams made sense. Most of them have the cap space. I'd say right now the only one is the Cardinals. I think they can clear that cap space, but you had to throw the Cardinals up there because that's his current team. But yeah, it's a tricky one. Could he get a 1-year deal? Will he take a discount, to play for a contender? Is he going to take the longest deal he can get, because he's getting up there in age? That's why it's a little tricky here with some of these guys. The guys could take the 1-year deal, and it's tough to predict. Yeah, could he take the discount, to play somewhere specific, So it's an interesting one there at number 10. And then pretty much in the same boat is Von Miller, veteran pass rusher, just a year older than Chandler Jones. He's helping the Rams right now. They trade for him. People question that. It's a boomer bust trade, possible rental. You win the Super Bowl for it to work out, and the Rams are still alive right now in the NFC Championship game this week against the 49ers. And Von Miller is really picking it up, late season to the playoffs. Playing, the hell of a game against the Buccaneers. So he's still got it. He's definitely still got it. I'd say Von Miller could fit either scheme. I'd like to think that. But so far in his career, he's played a 3-4 outside linebacker role and nothing else. So that's where I view him. He would definitely fit the Rams going back there. I can see him taking a 1-year cheap deal, maybe a 2-year cheap deal to go back to the Rams. Chargers pop up again. A lot of money. they got a 3-4 defense, probably looking for another pass rusher, but it's not at the top of their list maybe. They want to get run stoppers and receivers first perhaps. Throw the Cardinals up there. They're a team that's always making that big move. See J.J. Watt last year who plays 3-4 and then another 3-4 outside linebacker. Even maybe with Chandler Jones or without him, and he is a free agent. Throw the Dolphins up there again. A little bit of a multiple defense last year. We'll see the route they go. We're still waiting to see who they hire as a coach, replacing Brian Flores, of course. Throw the Seahawks up there again as well, which we don't know what type of defense they'll run. Donatell is a guy that popped up that I think they'll hire. He ran more of a 3-4, and that could fit Darrell Taylor, like we talked about Chandler Jones. Pairing a guy like Chandler Jones or Von Miller with a guy like Darrell Taylor. It kind of makes sense to me. And we'll throw the Ravens in there. They're kind of in the same boat as the Cardinals, unlike the rest of these teams. The rest of these teams have enough cap space to make this move, right now if they wanted to. If it was possible, it's not possible. Ravens a little low on the cap space. They move on from Don Martindale, which is a defense that, you want pass rushers. They're going to drop in coverage. You're going to blitz your inside linebackers a lot. So now they may focus on getting the pass rushers that just straight up can get after the quarterback, and that could be a guy like Von Miller. But them and the Cardinals got a little bit of clearing to do. There's other teams. If you don't see your team up here, they don't have the cap space right now, or I just really don't think it's a fit. Or they don't have the cap space. They could certainly clear some space, and we'll go over that in the near future. But it's a little tricky. It's a little tricky there. So these are the teams I viewed. A guy like Von Miller, some similar teams as Chandler Jones. We're going to see a lot of the similar teams pop up because they have the cap space, and teams may want to play for these teams, and they're good fits for some of these guys. They have the need for some of these guys. Because remember, we're not talking about all the free agents. We're talking about the top 10 guys. Top 10 guys get paid, all right? They get paid a lot of money here. But again, could some of these veteran guys take a 1-year cheap deal? Perhaps. Number 8, J.C. Jackson. So we get a corner in the mix, a young corner that's been a big-time playmaker towards the top of the NFL, getting his hands on the ball, whether it's interceptions or pass deflections. You would like to think the Patriots try to get him back. They move on from Stephon Gilmore. I talked about it last year during free agency. They slap a tender on J.C. Jackson, and I'm wondering, second-round tender, I'm wondering if they really – it felt like they wanted somebody to take that, so they would have to get a second-round pick. If that was the case, they probably would extend Stephon Gilmore. No extension for Gilmore. They're keeping Jackson. He has a hell of a year. So I think that kind of shifted on what they really want here. They really want to, in my opinion, to extend J.C. Jackson, and I think they're going to need to. But it's a solid young corner with man coverage experience, which is big time. So teams will be after him. I don't value corners as much as the league has. I think the league's starting to kind of go where my views were, unless it's for the top tier guys. And now you can debate if J.C. Jackson's a top tier guy or can be that guy. And again, the experience of the man coverage, being a playmaker, yeah, I can understand paying him, and that's why he's in the top 10 in my free agent rankings here for the top 10 of this upcoming offseason. But I like Steelers for him because they need a corner. Joe Hayden's a free agent. Some talk about them moving on from him or him moving on from them. Steelers were one of the best defenses for some time playing man coverage. This year they had to kind of shy away from that because they didn't really have the team to do it, so they kind of want to go back to Steelers football there, man coverage. You get a corner that has experience and pretty good experience playing man. Cardinals are kind of in the same boat. They want to kind of go more towards playing man. They've been looking for corners, so they could be interested in J.C. Jackson. They'll have to clear some space. They can do that, moving on from some guys like Jordan Phillips. We'll talk about in the future. I see some offensive linemen they can move on from. The problem is you're opening up holes in the offensiil line. The Bengals can move on from a guy like Trey Waynes. We talked about that already in a recent video. We got all kinds of offseason videos already up, many more to come. There'll be links pinned in the comment section, easy access to those. But they're on the channel. But the Bengals can move on from a guy like Trey Waynes, and they have the cap space, they have the money, and they could look to add a guy like J.C. Jackson. The Bengals do a good job of changing up what type of coverages they run. I think Jackson could fit that. Seahawks, again, loads of money. They let Shaq Griffin move on last year, and they didn't really feel like he was worth the big bucks. Maybe they feel J.C. Jackson is worth it, and that they can get better at the cornerback position. The Jets need a corner pretty bad, maybe multiple corners, loads of cap space. may think Jets, not the most appealing spot. Well, some guys chase the money. It's tough to judge a guy's character off that. But I think it's a pretty appealing spot, actually. You look at what Robert Saleh's doing with his defense and where it could be. I think it's a little more appealing than maybe one would think. Raiders need some corners here. I mean, it'd be depending on who they hire as a coach and who the defensive coordinator is. Because if it continues to be Gus Bradley, I would take the Raiders off this. I don't know if J.C. Jackson's the best fit. They're more of a cover 3 scheme with Gus Bradley. J.C. Jackson, I think, could run a variety, but you're going to need some more man coverage in there. But I think they'll switch. I think they'll have a different defensive coordinator here. They need some corners. And, they could be in the market for a corner, like I said. Colts, again, it'd just be dependent on if they are stay conservative. They actually decide finally to spend money this year. And they definitely could use a corner. They had to run a lot of cover 2 because and they did pretty good at it, but they didn't really trust their corners to cover downfield. So they definitely need some more better corners in there to help Kenny Moore out for sure. So a guy like J.C. Jackson, it's just all dependent on it because the Colts have the cap space. It's just, will they finally go out? Ballard's been a little disappointing when it comes to getting that team better, kind of relying on development with some guys. So the way Jim Irsay's talking, I keep saying it makes it sound like he's going to force it. He wants them to go all out this year, but we'll see if that's what he means by some of these messages he's been given, these speeches. So we'll see. Number 7, Harold Landry. So you get a pass rusher here that's very productive, and it's a guy that you want to sign long-term. He's going to help you now. He's going to help you in the future. He's got a ton of upside. I actually had a top 10 grade on him in his draft class. He goes in the second round, and he's playing like that player right now that I thought he would be. I like him in a 3-4 defense. That's where he's been playing. The Titans mix it up a bit. They don't really stick in their base defense, but I think teams that would be interested in Harold Landry would like him to be a 3-4 outside linebacker. Titans a little tight in the cap space, and they're going to find ways to clear some. They have the franchise tag maybe to use, but they would definitely like to get Harold Landry back, but they got to do some clearing here. This is number 7 for a reason here because he's got a lot of upside still and is very good at the moment as well. The Chargers, a lot of cap space, could use a guy like this. The Lions need some pass rush, and he fits where they're heading with their defense. So, man, the Lions, some teams like the Chargers, for an example, have more money than them, but the Lions got money. I don't think they're going to be afraid to spend it on these younger guys that could be a part of the. Because they're not in stage 1 of the rebuild anymore, but they're still somewhere in there. They're going to get they're going to spend money on guys that can be part of that, and then continue to draft. I love their draft last year. What if they signed a guy like Harold Landry and then drafted a guy like Aiden Hutchinson? Man, that's looking pretty good for the Detroit Lions there. Broncos, and we'll see who the Broncos bring in for defensive coordinator because Vic Fangio was running that 3-4, which Harold Landry would fit. So now it's a little bit up in the air. The good thing with the Broncos, they got some guys that can. A guy like Bradley Chubb is actually more of a 4-3 end at NC State. So they got some guys they'll fit either one. So I can see a scheme change, and then maybe if they go more 4-3, maybe they won't be in a guy like Harold Landry. There's probably some teams out there that view him as a 4-3 end possibly, but I like him a little more as 3-4 outside linebacker. Seahawks, again, a lot of money. Could be looking for a pass rusher to pair with Darrell Taylor. They're a little flexible with what they're trying to run there, but yeah, they're gonna change defensive coordinators. I talked about Ed Donatell as a possibility, maybe more of a 3-4 look if that's the case there. Dolphins, money, in need of a pass rusher. Ugba, free agent. We'll see who they hire for their defensive. I think they want to try to keep some in-house guys there. Jags, I think you'd fit well with Josh Allen there, and they have a ton of money. The Falcons are a little tricky because the Falcons, I didn't really have with the other pass rushers. Talk about Von Miller, Chandler Jones. Those guys probably sign 1 or 2 year deals. They probably go to a better team, more of a contender. The Falcons could be sneaky, but the Falcons are very, very low on cap space at this moment. But they actually have a pretty good amount in the future. So if they're going to sign a guy like Harold Landry, that would be a kind of a 4-year contract. They can space that money out in the back end, and they're able to do that then because they have good. I want to say next year they're okay, decent cap space, and then the next year they're up at the top. I'd say first or second most right now projected. So it looks pretty good. They need pass rush help. And Landry would fit their defense. So number 6 gonna be Orlando Brown. So you see a tackle. It's pretty rare for pretty solid tackles to become available in free agency. and maybe they won't make it. We got the franchise tag to get to. I mean, teams could extend these guys right before. Last year we saw a team like the Bills and the Packers get some guys under contract before they hit free agency. I mean, just days before. So could happen again. The Chiefs would like him back. They traded for him for a reason. They're still going with that dominant offensive line of theirs, which he's a big part of that. So the Chiefs would like to get him back. You'd think the Chiefs, they got to have no cap space, right? They actually got a decent amount of cap space, believe it or not. So they do a very good job in the front office over there. And a big reason why they're a top team. So they like to have Orlando Brown back, but man, there's some teams that'll be chasing Orlando Brown if he's available. Steelers definitely one. Definitely one of them. They have cap space. They need that left tackle. I think it kind of fits with their style of running, more of that power running with Najee Harris. So that'd be ideal. The Bears, I mean, they drafted Tevin Jenkins for left tackle. I think they'd switch him back over to right tackle and then try to get one of these big-time left tackles. I mean, they tried to sign Trent Williams last offseason. Bears got some money. You want to protect Justin Fields. This would be a guy, if available, that I think they'll be interested in, along with somebody else that we'll talk about. The Colts, I mean, they're going to have Eric Fisher for another year. Has a little bit of injury concern. Maybe the offensive line, run blocking-wise, it was definitely the same, top tier, elite. But pass protecting, it's definitely towards the top of the NFL still, but maybe not that elite where it was before. So maybe they could look to get a left tackle here and a guy like Orlando Brown. Again, dependent on if the Colts finally spend in free agency. I mean, they could have made it. They could have made it to where they wanted to go if they were spending this time. So we'll see. We'll see what they do here. Seattle's the same thing. Seattle's had, just like the Colts, they've had years where they've had, not last year, but they've had years where they've had cap space, and I'm like, what are they doing? They're just sitting there watching, relying on the talent they have. So I got Seattle, Indy and Seattle. I was hesitant to put these teams up here, but they are fits and they have cap space. But Seattle definitely could use some offensive line. Dwayne Brown, their longtime left tackle, who's getting up there in age and who they look like they didn't want to extend. He's a free agent, so that they have a need there for sure. Dolphins could use a tackle. They have the cap space. The Jags, interesting decision. They have Cam Robinson. Do they extend him? Do they not and try to get better with a guy like Orlando Brown free agency, or do they not do that and they draft the guy? So we'll see what they do. That's one of the big questions of free agency, actually, in my opinion. What will the Jags do at left tackle? Maybe not a lot of people talking about that. That should be one of the biggest ones because they have the first overall pick and potentially could take a left tackle there. And the Panthers definitely could use some tackle help. They have a decent amount of cap space. Chiefs going to be wanting to get him back. I think teams like Steelers, Bears, really be fighting to get a guy like this. He's my number 6 free agent. Number 5, we're going back-to-back Chiefs here. TYRANN Mathieu, the Chiefs safety, is a free agent, is a big-time veteran, with the instincts and with the playmaking ability that everybody wants on their defense. Chiefs probably would like to have him back. And some other teams here that could use, because TYRANN Mathieu, technically a strong safety, slot corner type player. I mean, you could put him at free safety, probably could make some plays, but the teams will be more comfortable with him with the use of strong safety or in the slot. It's kind of in that area. Chiefs would like to have him back. Steelers would like to have a guy like this. They can pair it, Minka Fitzpatrick. The Bears, definitely would like to have a guy like this. They can pair it Eddie Jackson. The Broncos got quite a few free agents at the position. Kareem Jackson, their strong safety, is free agent, and they value the slot corner position as well, which is Bryce Callahan, and he's also a free agent. So they could use Mathieu, it sounds like. And then those teams have the cap space. Washington has the cap space as well. Landon Collins was kind of their guy. He's still under contract, but he's more of a linebacker, box safety type, and they could cut him. Maybe they want more of the slot strong safety type guy, and then maybe put Kendall Fuller back outside at corner because he's a pretty good slot guy. So that's depending on some things there at Washington, but I would think their defense could be where it's supposed to be with a guy like that. The Jets definitely can use someone. They probably like where they're at. Now that I'm thinking about it, they probably like where they're at in the slot, but if they want Mathieu playing in strong safety, I like some of those other fits a little better. Ravens are another one too, interesting because they're changing their defense a little bit. They didn't really value the safeties that are that great in coverage. It was more so the corners in coverage was blitz a lot. So maybe get more of the guys that they could be moving on from their slot guy and Tavon Young who can't stay healthy. So maybe a guy like TYRANN Mathieu can play that nickel position and play strong safety, can help cover in that area as well. Possibility. They're going to have to clear some more space, but an appealing defense for Tyrann Mathieu, in my opinion. But I look at those top 4 teams, and those are the best teams for Tyrann Mathieu right here. So definitely an interesting free agent. Talk about another safety. This one, more of that free safety, that playmaking safety in the back end, can play single high free safety if you need him to. The Bengals got to get this guy back. Jessie Bates is a stud. He's a rising star in this league. I think he already is a star. I mean, he started a divisional round playoff game with an interception. That might be the play of the game that no one's talking about there, because how hard is it to start a game with an interception and bounce back from that? Titans couldn't really do it. So Jessie Bates, he's just so good at reading the quarterback, making a play. So the Bengals would like to keep him as a free safety. Chargers could use a free safety to pair with Derwin James, because they have Derwin James around the box, maybe on the line of scrimmage, pressing somebody at tight end, whatever it may be, in the slot. So they would like a free safety. They got the money, too. Eagles got some free agents to the safety position. They could use a playmaker in the back end. Maybe what they were trying to get out of Anthony Harris. You get a better version of Jessie Bates. They'd probably have to clear a little bit of money. That's the thing with the Eagles. They're not in a bad cap space situation, but they got some clearing to do to make some big moves. The Chiefs, I don't know if I see them getting Tyrann Mathieu and Jessie Bates back, even though they can play together. I mean, that'll be an all-star safety duo, because they can play together, one strong, one free. But they could look, because maybe their weakness is their downfield coverage. So maybe they would let Mathieu go and then focus on more of that downfield coverage, the free safety. Seahawks, Quandre Diggs, a free agent, a pretty good free agent that kind of just missed the top 10 cut. They can use a free safety and getting a guy, because again, Jamal Adams is a strong safety he's a box guy. He's gonna play around the box, around a line of scrimmage as much as possible. So you need a free safety, like Quandre Diggs, but maybe a better one here with Jessie Bates that can play that single high free, cover a lot of ground. So that would make sense of what they're looking for. In the Jets, Marcus May, a free agent, could use more of that coverage guy back there. I don't know if they'll focus fully on safety, though. I think they'll look at corner, linebacker, offensive line for the most part for the Jets, but they do have the money there. It's a trick. I'd say this is likely he's back with the Bengals here, just because he hasn't fit a whole lot of teams really aren't putting him as kind of their number one fit, and that's what we're focusing on maybe, even though he's a great player. It's just like a team like the Chargers, I would love him with the Chargers, but again, their focus is got to be on D-line, linebacker, receiver, finishing the offensive line maybe. So I like his chances back with the Bengals. Just odd that they didn't extend him at this point. So we'll see. On to the big top 3 of the 2022 NFL free agency. Number 3, going to go to receiver. I made these rankings, and I had the same top 10, my first initial rankings, and I kind of go back and go one by one, make sure I got what I think here. And I actually boosted Chris Godwin up a little bit, better rank, because I had him around that 5 range at first. But receivers are taking over. If you have all these weapons, Bengals, Rams, Chiefs got the weapons. The 49ers do as well. I mean, it's kind of taken over. It's kind of taken over here at this point. And you got a young receiver, and this style of receiver is kind of taking over the NFL. That almost his body type in his game almost says outside receiver turned into a slot receiver, kind of what Davante Adams is doing, what Cooper Kupp started doing this year. These guys are taking over the NFL, and Chris Godwin's already a very good one too, and he's young, he's getting better. On top of that, that's a reason to boost him up, my rankings. On top of that, the Buccaneers, he gets hurt. Chris Godwin gets hurt. I'm like, oh, did he just lose money? Is he losing? Did his free agency stock go down? And you start to think that a little bit. I was thinking probably not, but you start to think in the back of your head. But no, it actually went up, because guys are coming back from these injuries pretty easy these days. One, that's not the main thing. The Buccaneers suffered without him. They needed Chris Godwin and how much he does, playing in the slot, playing outside, but a lot in the slot, taking screen passes, taking quick slants, making big plays down the field. I mean, they missed him so bad. I mean, this was such a key piece to that big-time offense. I mean, the guy that makes Tom Brady look, I mean, if you're a player that can make the all-time best player look better because of your style of play, that's pretty damn good. So I'm getting hyped on Chris Godwin, who's only 25 years old, going to be 26, by the way. The Bucs, another team, you would think, no cap space. They actually got a decent amount here, so they could get Chris Godwin back based on what happened, they got to realize we need this guy back. So they'll be focused on that. The Chargers, I hesitated to put the Chargers in here. They got cap space. They need receivers badly. They led the league in drops, a whopping 38 drops. Herbert needs some damn help. Why I hesitate, though, kind of the same style players Keenan Allen. So do they want both? I think you just got to go get better. I think you just got to go get better here. And moving forward, I'd say Godwin's their best receiver moving forward, looking at the future if they were to get him. But maybe it may be a little unlikely because the same style players, Keenan Allen. How many of those slot guys could you have? Eagles probably need to clear a little bit of space to make this happen, maybe just a little bit. But they definitely can use this guy. Pair with DeVonta Smith there. They need that. The Browns definitely need a receiver. The receivers let them down big time this year. They could move on from Jarvis Landry, clear a good amount, over $15 million there. Godwin would definitely help them out. I like that fit too. Definitely help them out. Will he take the highest bidder, or will he kind of maybe take a little bit less to go to a better passing offense? That's the problem with the Browns. Maybe a guy like OBJ wanted out of there. Bears need a number one receiver. I think he's be a good guy to pair up Mooney, because Mooney's kind of that outside speedster who's looking promising, and then getting a guy like Godwin who can dominate the slot. They were trying to do that Allen Robinson, a little bit more, and that's just not his style. So Godwin would kind of fit Justin Fields in what they're trying to do. I like this a lot for the Bears. Patriots definitely need another receiver in there. Maybe a true. They got some good guys, but they need a true number one. Same with the Jags. Need a true number one. Trevor Lawrence, get the guy some help. Great fit. A guy like Godwin, you can kind of scheme up plays for. It can help Trevor Lawrence a lot. So I would like that fit. The Colts, a receiver. Question. They have money. Question is, will they go spend this year? But a guy to pair with Pittman. Remember, T.Y. Hilton's a free agent. Probably want to get better from him anyways. And you could put a lot more teams in here, teams that need receivers, but teams with the cap space that probably going after them. Number 2 in offensive tackle, TYRANN Armstead of the Saints. It's just rare that you see these types of tackles. And I say it's rare, but it sounds funny because Trent Williams, who's the best in football, was actually a free agent last year. But it is rare. And then this year you got Orlando Brown, who I ranked 6. TYRANN Armstead, I'm ranking 2 here. I mean, it's just a plug and play. Could be an instant Pro Bowl type tackle. Is a Pro Bowl type tackle. Here, and then it's just so many teams need that tackle. They need tackle help. It's rare to come across these guys. It's why guys are barely available, why teams don't trade these types of guys, because there's not too many of them. When you have them, you keep them. The Saints, they're in a pretty big hole in terms of cap space, but I think their priority number 1 is clear that cap space and get TYRANN Armstead back. I think people will look at the cap space, and yes, I would agree that they're not going to be able to do much at all. It's going to be tough to do much, but people would look at that cap space like, oh, they're not getting TYRANN Armstead back. I would not be surprised if they found a way to get TYRANN Armstead back. I would not be surprised. You see Sean Payton's gone, but you see his press conference, and he actually spoke highly of TYRANN Armstead for a reason there. So the Saints, it's an important piece to that organization. They'll be trying to get him back. But you see the same teams that popped up for Orlando Brown. Teams that need tackle, potentially a left tackle here, that have the money to do it. A lot of people think their team's going to get this guy, but do they have the money to do it? And there's always possible ways to clear space, but these are the teams I'm looking for. And, of course, there could be a few other teams here that can get thrown in. But I'm pretty confident with this video I made that, most of these guys, and I can't say every single one, but most of these guys are going to land on a team that I had up there for them. I'm pretty confident with that, most of them here. So, those are the same teams. I don't really need to explain again. Those teams need left tackles. They have cap space. They're going to be looking. These teams will, if available, will make offers for a guy like TYRANN Armstead. I can guarantee that. Number 1, got to be Davante Adams here. So we see 2 receivers within the top 3. Arguably the best receiver in football. I think most people would call him that, would agree on that. A guy that can dominate outside or inside. The 49ers had to double him to win that game in the playoffs divisional round. The Packers could get him back. They're in a hole, heading into free agency with their cap space. We talked about that, and they can clear some space. They still can make a move for Davante Adams. Watch out for the franchise tag. That probably won't be happy about it. And teams a lot of times franchise tag guy then trade them so they get something there. But I'd look for the franchise tag with Davante Adams. So that kind of blows us all up here. But and then they try to extend them after the franchise tag, or if they have to trade them and get first-rounders maybe. Chargers need a receiver. Again, I talked about it. They need one here. They need multiple, maybe lead the league in drops. Get Justin Herbert that help. Justin Herbert's a guy that needs to be in the playoffs. Get him some help. Raiders, Davante Adams played with Derek Carr at Fresno State. Makes it appealing. Raiders got some good cap space. Decent cap space, but in the future, they are rich. They are loaded in the future, so they can backload that if they need to. Browns need a receiver. Maybe not the most appealing spot because the run-first offense, but they definitely need receivers. Patriots will be in on receivers like this for sure. Dolphins have a lot of cap space. This could be a guy to pair with, more so the guy to pair with a guy like Jalen Waddle over Chris Godwin. Maybe not too much different, but in the Jags, Trevor Lawrence, they got to get him some help. And I threw the Broncos in here. They don't really need a receiver technically, but they seem to be high on the list of maybe landing Aaron Rodgers. So that kind of puts them, if they were to trade for Aaron Rodgers, maybe they trade Courtland Sutton or Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. I think it'd be Sutton would be involved with picks, or both Jeudy and Hamler, maybe spitballing here. And then they would sign Davante Adams while acquiring Aaron Rodgers. A lot has to happen for that to happen. I'm not saying I'm predicting it. I'm just saying it's a possibility right now. It sounds like it's a possibility. So I threw Davante Adams. I threw the Broncos in there for Davante Adams. They also have the cap space, which looks pretty good. And Rodgers won't be that expensive if they trade for him. You look at it, cap hits $40+ million. That's not what they acquire, though. They acquire 26 points so million. We've talked about it before. We talked about it on Twitter on here. So they can make it happen here, especially with trading cap space out. So I had to throw them in there. But I look out for the franchise tag, and then what we'll be waiting for is what the Packers decide after the franchise tag. Do they extend him? Do they try to get him to play on the franchise tag? Do they trade him? So they lose him in free agency. If the Packers lose Davante Adams in free agency, they are getting a third-round compensatory pick. Not for this year, of course. For next year, it's how it works. If they lose him, I'm guaranteeing a future third-round pick compensatory-wise. I'm guaranteeing it. Even though it's not determined yet, I'm guaranteeing it. But if they franchise tag him and trade him, if they know that they're losing him, then you're going to get look what Vikings got for Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs, a great receiver. They got quite a bit. They got a first round plus some other picks, and then you take Davante Adams. Do you pull 2 first-round picks? If you don't, it's a first and multiple day twos, so then you're getting that instead of that third-round compensatory pick, So if you do think you're going to lose him, the Packers need to franchise tag him and then trade him. So that's something we'll be watching for sure. But I think it's possible they franchise him and either extend him because they can pay him in the future. They can backload that. So that's something I look for there with the Packers, Davante Adams. That's my top 10 free agents. There's some good ones there, obviously, and there's some teams, the teams we talked about, in pretty good positions with their cap space situations. There's teams in some pretty damn bad situations, but there's always ways of clearing, which would be cutting players, trading players, restructuring, or pay cuts. Tough to find guys to do pay cuts, but sometimes you can find them here and there. We'll see. We have you covered fully on Twitter and on YouTube here, so cannot wait for the offseason. We'll have full coverage here. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on, follow us on Twitter, all that much appreciated. Check out our recent videos. Got quite a few covering the offseason and the playoffs. Yeah, that's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.